welcome to the Rundown with Dr. Sierra, where we discuss all things running. So today's episode is all about your shoes. We're talking about when should you replace your shoes, signs that you should look for, and just some tips to help you when you are going to the stores looking for new shoes. I just want everybody to make sure that they are running in the appropriate shoes, that they're changing them when they need to, and all of this is so that we can prevent injury. If you are new to this channel, welcome. But on this channel, one of the things that we definitely talk about all the time is injury prevention. So that is one of my main goals of this channel, obviously to bring you great and awesome running content, but also how can we make sure that we're not having any injuries. So let's get on into this episode. So first I want to talk about some signs that maybe it's time to get a new pair of shoes. So one, if you are running and you aren't typically known to have any pain while you're running, and you've been noticing lately that maybe after your run your feet are hurting and you may be feeling some new pains in your knees, and if you are doing other things for your body, making sure you're getting that strength training in a couple times out of the week, you're taking your rest breaks, and you just noticing like something isn't right, the shoes just may be one of the possibilities. I'm not saying that it's always going to be what fixes your problem, but it's definitely something to look at. So let's say you are a person who runs, let's say 3 miles a day. So typically I would say that your running shoes would be good on an average of 300 to 400 miles. For most people, that's like 6 months to a year. Now that if you are a person who is running way more than that, then you're probably needing to change your shoes a lot more frequent. So you just want to make sure that whatever you're doing is working best for you. One of the tell signs of needing new shoes is looking at the bottom of it. So if you are seeing a lot of wear and tear on the bottom in a certain area, or if you are noticing that there's not a lot of grip on the bottom of your shoes and you just kind of worn them down, then you probably need to invest in a new pair of shoes. Now, the bottom of your shoe is also going to tell you a lot about how you're running. So let's say you notice that the inside, is really worn down and it's the same on both of your shoes. Now, you obviously want an even amount of rubber on all parts of the shoe. So if on the inside, like let's just say this is the inside of your shoe, is really worn right there, that probably means that when you're running, you're turning your feet inward. And so because of that, you are more than likely putting a lot of stress on your knees. So if your feet are going there that way, then what are your knees going to do? Your knees are going to turn inward that way as well. So we call that genu valgus. Now, because of that, that just means that your glute muscles are not strong while you're running and then they collapse. So if you've seen people do a squat and they squat down and then their knees go in, they don't have that strong glute muscles in order to support their legs to be able to perform that squat. And I know you think like, okay, how did you get all of that from your shoes? Well, it's just showing you where your muscle imbalances are. Now, the same is very true that if you maybe you feel like the wear is on the front part of your foot or if it's on the side. It just all has to do with the placement of your feet while you're running. So supination, pronation, you don't want over supination or over pronation while you're running. So that means that we need to work on some of your stability muscles and make sure that those are stronger so that your feet aren't collapsing in while you're running. Now, another thing is maybe it's not necessarily the shoe and maybe it's your foot. Maybe you have a very high arch or maybe you don't have an arch at all. And both of those could just mean that you maybe it's not a new shoe that you need, but maybe you need to be wearing inserts or some type of orthotics while you're running. If that is not something that you're able to do, then you want to make sure that when you go into a shoe store and you get fitted by a person who, that's what they do for a living, they sell the shoes, they make sure people's feet are comfortable while they're running. You want to make sure that you're bringing these things up to them so that they can get you the most appropriate shoe. So my first point was if you are having a lot of pain, that could be a reason. But then also if the shoes that you are wearing, they're not able to absorb a lot of the shock and you're running with a very thin shoe, sometimes you could be having pain as a result of that. I know that there's a lot of different type of shoes. I know that there are people who run with those, I guess, like finger or toe shoes that are very, very thin. It's like a minimalist shoe. Those do not necessarily work for everyone because some people need that extra support while they're running instead of like their foot pounding the pavement and not absorbing that shock. So it could be that your shoe does not have enough support for your foot while you're running, while you could be experiencing some pain, or it just could be that they're worn down and you just need to get a new pair. Like, another main point that I want to make sure that everyone who is watching this video is aware of, that your running shoes need to be for when you take runs. Your running shoes are not for going to the grocery store or running errands or just your everyday shoe. You want to keep the two separate. You want to make sure that your foot is, or your shoe rather, is not getting like super worn out or super stretched just in your daily walk, because you want that shoe to maintain that level of support that you need for when you go on your runs. It is very, very important that you keep the two separate. I know, like, my patients can vouch that if they come, and especially if they're trying to get back into running, I'll have them jump on the treadmill with their running shoes, but when they get off the treadmill, then I want them to change their shoes, because now we're about to maybe do some workout, doing different things, and I don't necessarily want them in their running shoes just because that's not what we're doing at the moment. So I like to keep the two separate, and so if you can, I would definitely suggest purchasing a specific running shoe and keeping that just for when you go on your runs, and all the other times have just like your everyday sneaker that you can wear, and keep the two separate. I want to know is that when you look at the bottom of your shoes, as I talked about this a little bit earlier, but maybe for you, your shoe wear is different from foot to foot. And so that again is going to tell you a lot. Maybe it's not something that you necessarily need to change for both of your shoes. Maybe you don't need to invest in a new pair of shoes. I talked about the orthotics. Maybe it's just an orthotic that can switch or kind of change some things so that you're not putting that extra pressure in a certain area on the bottom of your foot. Now, one thing, some people, if you go to a physical therapist and they are able to actually look at everything, some people, their alignment is a little bit off. Maybe one leg may be slightly longer than the other one. And if that's the case, then you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're having some type of insert inside of your shoe that can help you, because you want to be running as even as you possibly can. Granted, there are other reasons why people may not be able to run like that, and they're still able to run. I'm not trying to deter you from running. I'm just saying you want to look at the mechanics of everything. Your shoes play a big role in how you're able to run. So we just want to make sure that your body mechanics are even and that everything is lined up the best way possible. So that's why it's important to make sure that you kind of get an evaluation of your body so that you can know what's going on, because maybe you don't know that one leg is longer than the other. Maybe you don't know that you have flat feet. Maybe you don't know that maybe your arches have dropped. Maybe over the years that's something that has happened and you're just not aware. You just want to make sure that when you're going to go get fitted, that you're able to give the person who's fitting you for your shoe the appropriate amount of information. Like, hey, this has been happening. I've been having this knee pain because I've been going to a physical therapist and they let me know that, this is what I need to work on. So I need a shoe that is going to be able to support that as well. I think all in all, it just really depends on what you want out of your running shoes, and I think it also depends on where you're running. So obviously, if you are a trail runner, you may want a different pair or type of shoe versus when you're running maybe through the neighborhood, or if you're running on rubber sole, because you want to make sure that those shoes have good traction for you. Obviously, we don't want you to slip and fall. We don't want to have any new injuries. So you need to make sure that the shoes that you're wearing are able to support your foot the best way possible. Now, if you run in a climate that is always raining or it's very cold, there's different shoes that you need to be wearing so that you're not slipping, especially if you're running in a rainy area. You want to make sure that it has a good surface so that you don't slip and fall. And again, I think I talked about this in one of my other videos. When it's cold and if it's snowing, you want to make sure that your shoe kind of has almost like I don't know, just like a snow traction on the bottom of it so that you don't slip. So you just have to make sure that you are exhausting all your possibilities when you're looking for your new shoes. You want to make sure that your new shoes feel really comfortable for your foot. You want to make sure that it has the right level of support. You want to make sure that your shoe has cushion. You don't want to run, let's say, in like a Chuck Taylor that is very thin, it is very flat, and it's not a running shoe. If you look at the curvature that are in a lot of the running shoes, it kind of curves similar to the way that your foot is because your foot needs to be comfortable. Nothing against Chuck Taylors, but they are more so for fashion or maybe like lifting when you need a flatter shoe. So just make sure that the activity that you are doing matches your shoe. I know sometimes it's very easy, like, all right, well, I just want to get this quick run in, but I don't have my running shoes, or I don't, have the correct shoes on, but I just still want to get my run in. Sometimes that is okay, but you definitely don't want to make a habit of it because you don't want to start changing the mechanics of how you're running. You don't want your feet to start hurting. You don't want to create any new injuries. So it's very important to make sure that you're planning out your runs and have all the appropriate gear that you need to. We definitely just do not want to have any new injuries. So I think that's why I'm just trying to drive that point home, that your footwear is really important. And I know that sometimes having to spend that money, like, the shoes are fine, they're not separated, but it's important that if you don't want to have any new injuries down the road, that you take some time to invest in your shoe wear, making sure that it's the appropriate ones and making sure that you are replacing it on a schedule. Just have a schedule. Maybe you're like, I'm only going to buy maybe like 2 or 3 pair of shoes a year. But if you're really serious about running, then you want to make sure that you're doing whatever fits according to your running schedule, because that is truly what makes the difference. I know I said the 300 to 400 miles, and some people are like, well, I don't really know, but you can do it based off of the months. Maybe you just on a rotation of like every 6 months I change my shoes. Do whatever you need to do to make sure that your body is in good shape to run. So that's just like my take home point for this video. So I hope that you all thoroughly enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please leave your comments below. Just let me know if you have any questions and I'll be glad to answer them. If you have any other tips that you use on how you gauge when to get new running shoes, leave those below in the comments below. And you can like and subscribe this video if you enjoyed it so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Happy running!